Okay, you read the title. You know why we're here. Most of you are having one of two reactions to me claiming that Star Wars is not science fiction. There's a group of you going, duh, and there's a group of you going, what? Star Wars is totally science fiction. There's lasers, there's spaceships, there's aliens. Okay. If you're in the category of people going, duh, then you probably know where I'm going with this, but if you're in the second category, just let me explain. So why is Star Wars often considered to be sci-fi? Well, to most people it seems like a no-brainer. They have lasers, space travel, lightsabers, alien worlds and planets, you know, the stuff that sci-fi is made of. Well, then what's fantasy? When most people think fantasy, they think swords and sorcery, dragons and princesses. We think Lord of the Rings or Harry Potter. We think European, often British, but sometimes with Nordic or Gaelic elements. It's centered in the past, time of legends and kings, not in the future with robots and aliens. Here's the thing though, Star Wars is solidly and objectively in the realm of fantasy. In fact, it's high adventure. Now, to understand this, we need to compare it to something that is definitely known as fantasy, like, say, comparing Episode 4 to Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone. And in case you're wondering, yes, I did get the idea to do this from the comment made by the Nostalgia Chick in her Lord of the Rings review. The reason we can compare these things is a simple one. It all boils down to the classical story of the cycle of the hero developed by Joseph Campbell, also known as the monomyth. Almost every fantasy story from King Arthur to Willow follows this formula. There are variations, some steps are left out, some happen in different ways, and each section in the cycle can be as long or as short as the author needs, but there's a general set of guidelines that will almost always happen. You start off with your hero, say Luke or Harry, and what's called the summer stage. In many variations, the cycle is based on the 4 seasons. The summer stage isn't necessarily good or idealistic, although it often is, but it is a status quo. Luke lives on a farm, Harry lives in the cupboard under the stairs. It's all either of them have ever known, and the story needs to establish that. During the summer stage, usually at the beginning of the story, something comes along and kicks that status quo right in the face. In Harry's case, he finds out that he's Wizard Jesus, and Luke is forced to face the Empire in one way or another thanks to buying R2-D2 and C-3PO. A few things need to happen in this stage. For one, this is when the hero will find a mentor, a Dumbledore or an Obi-Wan Kenobi. That mentor is there to mentate and guide the hero in the first part of his quest. There are plenty of other examples of this character. Gandalf certainly qualifies, Professor Xavier in the X-Men, and I'm sure you can think of many others. The hero is also granted a weapon at this point, one that either works only for him or best in his hands. We find out that Harry's wand has super anti-Voldemort powers as long as he's wielding it later on, and it's pretty common knowledge in Star Wars that only the Jedi or those with Force aptitude really have the potential to handle a lightsaber correctly. This segment of the cycle ends with the hero journeying into the unknown, leaving behind what he knows, aka Harry departing for Hogwarts or Luke leaving for Tatooine. This is followed by a set of trials for the hero and his potential helpers, be it wizarding classes or rescuing the princess from the Death Star. This stage usually takes up the majority of the story right up until we enter the winter phase. However, one thing has to happen either at the end of the fall or beginning of the winter phase. The mentor figure has to leave the picture. Either he has urgent business with the Ministry, he gets killed by Darth Vader, he turns evil, anything else, just so long as he is cut off from the hero. This is essential. With the mentor still around, the hero does not have the opportunity to prove himself on his own. Had Dumbledore still been at Hogwarts when Quirrell was trying to take the stone, then, well, there's no reason for Harry to go down and face the darkness by himself. And that's what the winter stage generally is, facing the big bad, the Death Star, Voldemort, Cobra Kai, whatever. Here the hero has to overcome the antagonist, usually after some form of temptation to turn evil themselves. This part generally ends up being the climax of the story. With the darkness banished and the hero victorious, we enter the spring stage of the cycle, where rebuilding and recovery can begin and a new status quo is formed, or at least the hero is free to live his life as usual again. Or if you're Chewbacca, you get nothing, because why would you deserve a medal for anything? Sorry, that annoys me a little bit. But in any case, I just spent the last few minutes comparing Harry Potter to Star Wars, but I just gave you the barest of bones rundown of what the cycle of the hero is. There are a lot more steps that either can or can't potentially take place, but they don't matter right now. Now, I know for many of you, you've thought that this past few minutes was a waste of time, because, well, Star Wars has to be science fiction. There's lasers and space and robots. Okay, let's look at this another way. While fantasy tends to be more timeless and retrospective, science fiction is futurist. Traditional science fiction paints a picture of where we're going, where the trends of the day are leading us. Take The Time Machine by H.G. Wells, where a time traveler goes to the far future to find that laborers have evolved into a separate species from what we would call the management. These Morlocks, as they're called, live underground, slaving away while the gentle, childlike surface dwellers enjoy the fruits of their labor. That's commentary on how our world works. This isn't just shoving new technology in our face and going, "Ooh, look at this." It's about making a point of what's to come. Star Wars simply doesn't do this. Take all the sciencey elements out of Star Wars and you're still left with the same story. Make the different planets different locations on the same world, the lightsabers into swords, make the aliens into elves and dwarves, make the Sith wizards and the Jedi regular knights, and you basically have the same story. With science fiction, you can't do that. The new place and the new way of thinking are the story. They're what makes up the whole thesis of the narrative. With The Time Machine, H.G. Wells wanted to make us look at the working classes and where that would lead, as well as the future of humanity as a whole. In something like I, Robot, it's a cautionary tale about the dependence on technology and how that can easily be turned against us. Something like Star Wars simply does not have social commentary like that. It is a party of heroes fighting an evil whose only motivation is he's greedy. That's what high adventure is. So yeah, there you go. Star Wars, not science fiction. I hope you learned something today.